This week, we thought we'd talk to you a little bit about blood sugar. Now, most of us will know that food gives us three main nutrients: fat, protein, and carbohydrate. And it's carbohydrate that is our body's go-to fuel of choice for higher intensity endurance exercise. However, not all carbohydrates have the same effect in our bloodstream when we eat them. And it's important to understand why and what we can do to control the effect that different carbs have on our blood sugar level. So a quick bit of science. Different carbohydrates have a different molecular structure. So some, like simple sugary carbohydrates, just are simple individual molecules on their own. So instead of there being a chain like this, all the chains are broken and you've just got these individual molecules. So the energy can enter the bloodstream very quickly because the body doesn't need to break it down. And that causes a big spike in blood sugar very quickly. And that's not great, so the body needs to get that level down. So at this point, it releases insulin, that packs away the energy into the muscle for later use, and then a little while later, blood sugar levels return to normal. The issue is that we get this dip, so that maybe 4 o'clock slump that you might get after a lunch. Other carbohydrates, like we might find in grains or veg, or pulses or nuts, the molecules are all linked up. So the body has to break them down, and that means that the energy gets in a lot more slowly into our blood sugar level, not causing this big spike in blood sugar or this big release of insulin to pack it away. And that's a lot more healthy. But it's important that we understand why sometimes carbohydrates are going to get in and cause this big spike, and sometimes when they're not. And then we can tailor our nutrition to our lifestyle on that day, that hour, or maybe even to our training session. To fully tell how a carbohydrate that you've eaten is going to react in your body, there's a few other things that we need to understand. Number one, fibre plays an important role as well. So if you have a food that has some sugar in it, or even a meal that has some sugar in it, but then you have some fibre as well, think of honey, nice sweet carbohydrate, on some oats for breakfast, the fibre in the oats will slow down the absorption rate of that carbohydrate. So you need to always consider how much fibre is there, as well as how much sugar there is. Number two is how processed something is. So many of the foods that we eat now in the West come in a packet, and if it's in a packet, it probably means someone put it there. And if they put it there, it might mean that it's been through a process of manufacture. And often that process will do the same as our body does and break those bonds. Again, meaning the carbohydrate can be absorbed more quickly. So looking for foods that are less processed means those bonds might still be there and the energy can absorb more evenly and as we need it through the day. In exactly the same way as manufactured processed foods might have an effect on the molecular structure, similarly cooking will have the same effect. So cooking something for a very long time or at a very high temperature can also break down these bonds. A good example would be the humble potato. So a potato out of the ground, starchy, all the carbohydrate molecules bonded together, great, but you can't eat it like that. So what are you going to do? Maybe you're going to bake it, in which case long time, exposure to high temperature, or maybe you're going to cook it quickly, frying it, but it's exposed to a very high temperature. And those things mean that actually when it comes to the humble potato, when we eat it, it's very difficult to have it in a consumable state that isn't fairly high GI, or where these molecules are broken down and the energy is going to enter our bloodstream quite quickly. So think about cooking. Things like steam cooking and gentler, shorter cooking times are usually better when it comes to blood sugar level. The next thing we need to consider is ripeness. Take a banana. Whoa, made it. So in its state like this, still quite green, yellowy, no brown spots, we know it's pretty fresh. And actually, that means that its GI is going to be maybe medium on the table. The energy is going to absorb somewhere in the middle of the spectrum. However, leave this for a few days, and so that it gets a few brown spots and eventually the banana's turning a bit more mushy. And what you have is time doing the same thing as processing or cooking, breaking down the molecules, making it higher GI, higher glycemic index, which just means the energy gets in quicker. So be aware of ripeness as well. Think about our friend the banana. Number 5 on our list is how much added sugar there is. So again, westernized diet, quite processed. And generally what you find is most processed foods have sugar added. Things like breads and cereals and even lots of savoury snacks. So have a look on the back of the packet of things that you're buying. Have a look at the amount of sugar. If it's anywhere around 22 grams of sugar per 100 grams, that's considered quite high. And if there isn't much fibre there to balance that out, then the added sugar is going to mean that it has a more rapid effect on blood sugar levels and might not be the ideal thing for your health, training or recovery. 2 more. The amount you eat is also important. So whereas you take some sweets and there we know going to be broken down molecules, energy gets in quickly, but if you've only had a couple of them, it's not going to have a massive effect on blood sugar. Whereas even a whole grain carbohydrate, something like brown rice or brown pasta, if you eat an absolute ton of it, is going to still have a big effect on blood sugar levels. So always consider as well, how much of the thing, how much of the carbohydrate are you eating? And finally, we've got a little bit of a curveball, and this one doesn't get mentioned too often, but it's your fitness level. If you take someone who is unfit, fairly unhealthy, doesn't do much physical activity, and then someone who does train quite a lot, and you give them the same amount of carbohydrate in a high GI form that's going to get in the blood quite quickly, what we find is that the spike that you see in the unfit person is far more rapid and more significant than the healthy person. The take-home point of that is that living a healthy lifestyle most of the time will protect you from some of the negative effects of regular and large rises and falls in blood sugar level and the insulin that is needed to pack that away into the working muscle. So who knew? Fitness and health is a good thing and certainly has implications when it comes to understanding and maintaining blood sugar levels. And so that's it. Now we've covered blood sugar, carbohydrate, and hopefully that's going to help you make some more informed choices about how you can moderate your own blood sugar levels so that you stay healthy and get the most from your training and maybe even working day.